It's time for the Luca Rosano Show. Here's your host, Luca Rosano.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Luca Rosano Show, presented by Dave and Buster's Vaughn. They have just reopened their doors, so go check them out and support local business. I'm back on this podcast with a very special guest. I'm joined by Jake Fischer of Bleacher Report, who has made some headlines of late. Jake, how you doing, man? Thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy day and schedule. I know you're extra busy these days, but how's it going?
It's going, man. Rumors are flying. It's draft week. It's we do the song and dance every year, so it's good to be back. But also, I'm looking forward to a vacation in a couple weeks. So, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Just as you are excited for the NBA draft, I am too. And there's been a lot of crazy rumors going around, and I want to start, talking about some of those rumors with you, and we're just going to dive right into it. I cover the Raptors very closely on this channel, and recently reported that the Raptors are exploring all sorts of trades ahead of the draft, including trades involving Pascal Siakam, who is now considered available. What more can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I think it's important to consider that all these situations, Bradley Beal in Washington, Damian Lillard in Portland, Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, Pascal Siakam in Toronto, this trade market that's evolving, they're all impacted by each other, right? And I think with Toronto having this number 4 pick here, it's a really interesting inflection point for this franchise where they still have enough pieces in play from that 2019 championship run where, Kyle Lowry could still feasibly re-sign in Toronto, right? If they make some blockbuster move to bring in a Bradley Beal or bring in other type of, win-now players, they can still retain Kyle Lowry. It's still a plausibility, and they could, push their chips back in for another playoff run. But there's also the opportunity to kind of sell off here and start a rebuild with this 2021 class that is considered to be a super deep class. So I think the Raptors are kind of just not sitting back, they're super active but sitting back and exploring what their moves are in front of them and really, looking up under every stone and calling teams about Pascal. Like I just got off with an assistant general manager before we got on the phone who, is saying Pascal Siakam is definitely available, and there's continuing to be movement about just seeing what packages come back. So we can unpack more if you want, but that's kind of my first answer for you there.
What does the market look like for Siakam right now? Here's a guy who's coming off an inconsistent season and a half, really, going back to the bubble, and he just had left shoulder surgery.
Yeah, I think the shoulder surgery plays a factor in the value back in terms of what that's going to be. The NBA is a marketplace and an ecosystem where owners and players and agents and executives, they're all acting to try to maximize their earning potential and their ability to put themselves in a position to win a title. And that theme is all throughout, my book, looking at team building, and it's really kind of where I think the rise of these analytical executives, like the Daryl Morey's breeding the Sam Hinkies and the Sam Presti's breeding, Rob Hennigan and other people around the league popping up. Like we're in this game of trying to, if you're at the top, you are always trying to push your chips on the table and, get the most value in a deal, get the most value in a contract that can ultimately, push your team towards a title within these ridiculously stringent cap restrictions at play. So with Pascal, that shoulder injury is going to be something teams are going to say, is why his value is lower. But also, there's just been a general lower, valuation on Siakam. I think dating back to the Orlando bubble. I think, his postseason performance wasn't exactly stellar there. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just been ripple effects since then. And this is all kind of coming to a head now as the draft presents such an opportunity with that pick at number 4 with all these other potential moving pieces for them to explore all opportunities.
So you did also say that the Raptors are reportedly pursuing Ben Simmons, and there has been, and I quote, haggling between both sides. How likely do you think the Raptors actually do get a deal done involving Pascal and land a star player in return, whether it be Simmons or somebody else?
Yeah, the Simmons-Siakam situation, they seem pretty similar. Both teams, Philadelphia and Toronto, seem to be interested for various reasons on the court and intel off the court, and connectivity issues with other members of that franchise. It seems to be why these guys are also in the forefront of trade conversations. But I think with the Simmons situation, Daryl Morey is clearly holding out hope for, at least I'm not going to say so definitively, but this is how it just seems. It seems pretty clear Daryl Morey is holding out hope that Bradley Beal, who, again, I reported that he is considering it. I spoke to someone this morning that he is considering a trade, but there's still a great expectation in the league that Bradley Beal will not request a trade. In that event, Daryl Morey is still going to hope that Damian Lillard comes back from Tokyo and looks at the landscape of Portland's roster and the rest of the league, and he does request a trade. And in that regard, he will be kicking himself if Ben Simmons is no longer on his roster to do so. So I think, short of the Bradley Beal situation coming into play here, I don't think there's going to be much Ben Simmons traction moving forward until later in the offseason as the free agency stuff starts to sift out, unless some team comes in and gives Philly an offer that they would love. And when we poke around the league and ask about that type of situation with Toronto, it sounds like the Sixers have more of an eye on Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby than Pascal Siakam, which OG is a player that everyone in the NBA is very quick to point out is a favorite of Masai's and the overall front office. So that seems to be a non-starter and where those talks have kind of stalled so far.
What about the Warriors? I know there was some traction a couple weeks ago that they could have maybe gotten involved and traded for Siakam. Any news on that? Anything that you heard?
I think with Golden State, sure, it's an opportunity. That's an opportunity that Toronto would love to see moving Pascal for, and that package with Wiseman and Andrew Wiggins coming back is something that the Raptors have been very aggressive looking to find athletic young big men for years now. I mean, they were following Andre Drummond before they made the trade to get Marc Gasol, and they have been long rumored to be suitors for Jared Allen. And depending on how things shift here, I'm sure they'll throw some money at him in free agency. Wiseman was someone that they were it was definitely a rumor they were interested in last year. His value, I think, is probably lower right now objectively than where it was coming into the draft, but I think that's where that stuff has stemmed from. But it does not seem like Golden State has much intrigue at that offer, and the Warriors are getting pressure from their star players to say, go get another guy, other pieces to help push us to win a championship. And I don't know if Pascal Siakam is the name that they're going to be signing off on.
So outside of the Warriors and Sixers, are there a couple of teams that could make an aggressive push for Siakam?
I haven't heard of that right now. I mean, the talk around the league about Pascal Siakam trade conversations seems to be more generated by Toronto exploring the market than other teams calling and asking for what it would take to get him.
How do you view Siakam personally? Do you think this is the guy that the Raptors should try and get as much as they can for now, or should they hold on to him and be a little bit more patient with him?
It's tough to say. I'm not an NBA executive for a reason, right? I'm not in those rooms and full. There's only so much level of information that we do know, as much as you do talk to people who are in the room and having those conversations. So it sounds like it's a situation that all sides could benefit from a change of scenery. Same thing with Ben Simmons, like I said. Same thing with Bradley Beal potentially too. Same thing with a lot of players in the league. There's a lot of players in the league who are unhappy, who are looking for a new team, who are looking for new minutes, who don't like their head coach, who don't like their player development coach who's been assigned to them. There's always an opportunity for players to just say, hey, I'm going to go to that team and I'll be much more happier, I'll have a better situation, and I'll be able to put myself in a spot to perform and make my next contract. And the same thing with Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma is definitely looking, not definitely, bear with me here. It seems pretty clear that Kyle Kuzma is hearing his trade talk and looking at it as an opportunity. He saw what Julius Randle did and what Brandon Ingram did after they left the Lakers, and he's like, look, this is my opportunity to do that too. So I think that's kind of what, that's all that context is to say, sometimes a trade isn't necessarily a bad breakup. It's just a good opportunity to kind of start a next chapter.
You said before that this upcoming draft has a chance to be very, very special. Are there any teams that you anticipate could trade up and try to get a higher pick in the draft because of how special it is? I mean, the Raptors have been reportedly, I think, trying to trade up. Is there another team on your radar?
Yeah, Memphis just did. Woj broke it a couple minutes before we came on, and I got that the 2022 first-round pick, New Orleans is sending Memphis his top 10 protected. So it's definitely, the traction's happening. That's the deal I thought was going to be the one that, the shoe that dropped first. But from there, all teams picking 9 through 13 outside of Memphis are considered to be open for trade. And the Rockets are a team mentioned that want to move up. The Knicks are a team mentioned that want to move up. Brooklyn's a team mentioned that wants to move up. And there's a lot of teams that want to trade out of the back of the first round for second-round picks or for veterans. So there's going to be, I talked to a team cap guy who said, this is going to be the craziest, most, trade-filled draft night possible, and it's certainly seeming like that's going to happen.
That's wild. I mean, that's definitely going to be exciting from a fan's perspective. Do you anticipate any other crazy moves happening this offseason, or do you generally think it's going to be a quiet one?
Well, the league tends to operate like dominoes. So if the Bradley Beal situation were to come to a head, if Damian Lillard were to change teams, that would typically spark reactionary moves, or not necessarily right away, but teams would definitely start to look about other opportunities here to improve their roster. And Daryl Morey is definitely someone that loves to look at his roster as not a finished product on day one of training camp. So I think that's also a thing that a lot of teams start to look at now. There's always opportunities to improve on the margins, especially in this world where we have buyouts and guys get to kind of navigate where they want to go, like Andre Drummond to the Lakers or Ken Burch even going to Toronto.
Yeah.
So in that ecosystem, I think if a deal were to occur in later August, it would certainly start at least people having conversations, looking elsewhere.
Oh, where'd you go? Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I had a call.
It's all good. It's all good. I know you got to get out of here. Before I do let you go, I just want to talk a bit about your book. That definitely seems like an interesting read. Built to Lose: How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. It's now available for purchase. I'll put a link down below in the description. Why don't you give us a little preview of what this book is all about?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I grew up from Philly, so I was covering that social situation pretty closely as I was coming up as a reporter at SB Nation Liberty Ballers, and I was at Slam Magazine, at Sports Illustrated, and the big theme at the beginning of my career was I was from Philly and I went to school in Boston. It was starting at the TD Garden with a credential on my neck and meeting people, and it was just the tanking conversation was something I couldn't escape. It was something that was happening across the board because that 2014 class was considered to be the best class since 2003, which is ironically the 2021 group we're talking about now is in that same type of hype machine. So I really tried to peel back the curtain. I talked to 300 people for that book, over 300 people, players, agents, coaches, executives, you name it. Who, a lot of my reporting at Bleacher Report right now is anonymously sourced, being that it's sensitive information in the moment. But I look back 5 years ago, and I got a lot of people to talk on the record about some really crazy shit. George Carlos King stuff and Vlade Divac, and really interesting behind the scenes details in Philly and Boston and the Lakers with Kobe, and all this type of stuff that kind of shows you how everything we're talking about right now, how these things happen on the ground in real time. And I kind of trying to peel back the curtain of, how this NBA ecosystem of all these independent actors really functions behind the scenes.
You're a Sixers fan, correct?
No. I was a Sixers fan as a child. It was a very nice way to foray into the NBA, but at this point, I couldn't. It would be too exhausting to root for a team. It's just This business is it's a beast, So I definitely kind of view myself as like an objective observer of what's happening. I'm just kind of interested in what this world is bringing up every day,
That's interesting. I always wondered with, some reporters if they actually did heavily root for a team. That's actually interesting. And I thought for sure you would have been a fan of a team. But I guess that's an easier way of doing your job, so at least you're not extremely biased with some situations.
For sure. I'm definitely an Eagles fan, absolutely. But yeah, when the Sixers lost, my first thought was, shit, this is not going to help me. Like, Mir and Fader, my good friend at The Ringer, killed it with the timing. Her book on Giannis is coming out. Everyone should buy it. She writes this amazing biography as this dude climbs the mountaintop. But I was hoping I was going to have Philly winning it all, right? I didn't care they were going to win it for like fandom purposes. Phoenix winning would have been great too. They were in the book. Boston winning it. I root for things that make people happy and the stories that I'm working with or working on that I want to talk to in the post-game locker room.
Yeah.
Or I root for things that for good people that I come across in this business who I am hoping get some success and stuff like that, more so than team by team. And sometimes I'm rooting for a team and sometimes I'm rooting against that team. Because I tune in on a Wednesday night, and it'd be cooler for the people involved on Team Y than Team X to win the game. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, if you were a Sixers fan, I would have slandered you on this podcast being a Raptors fan for a whole little rivalry.
See, I missed that whole rivalry, man. I got out of the fan game in like 2012. So like I get it. My brother's still diehard, but like that didn't even like, the fact you just said there's a rivalry there. It didn't even like register in my head.
That's crazy. Well, guys, definitely go check out Jake's book. Again, I'll put it in the description. And yeah, I'm sure it's a great read. I'm going to go pick one up myself and read one. So, Jake, thank you so much for your time, man. I know you're extremely busy. Thank you for doing this. Guys, go follow him, Jake L. Fischer on Twitter. And Jake, enjoy this next crazy 2 weeks or so.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you guys for watching. Like the podcast, subscribe, share, and I'll catch you all again in the next one. Take care.